All right, I want to welcome you here this afternoon for a seminar by Dr. Taylor. If we haven't met before, I'm Dr. Masters, and I would ask that if there are any cell phones that are around, that they be turned off so it doesn't interfere with anything. And I've been invited by Dr. Taylor, and I'm very honored to be his introductory person here today. I came into contact with Dr. Taylor when he enrolled with the University of Metaphysics quite some years ago, and he went through our program and earned his doctorate through us. And it came to my attention, I should say who I am then. I founded the University of Metaphysics decades ago. Here locally it has its representation as the University of Sedona, which we started about 8 years ago in this area. It is part of an organization that has grown with teachers in 120 countries, and Dr. Taylor is one of those teachers. In regard to himself, he goes from different places. He's a world traveler. Most of our teachers and graduates stay in one place. I don't think Dr. Taylor could stay in one place for too long because he's too universal. He has to be everywhere. I became interested in what Dr. Taylor is going to talk about here. In 1959, I received my doctorate in psychology, and I was not that interested in the usual approach to psychology. I was more interested in the exploration of consciousness itself. The reason I felt gravitating towards this is because I felt if we could explain consciousness, we could explain life itself. So in 1959, I opened the Institute of Parapsychology in Beverly Hills, California. The idea was not to do the usual parapsychological things that were prevalent at that time, which was like running mice through mazes and using flashcards. You know, what am I thinking? A square, a circle, a triangle. But mine was more to take things that were brought up from the East, from yoga as an example. Because early in my studies, I came across the teachings of Carl Jung, who I was very impressed with as opposed to Sigmund Freud. Because Jung made a statement that stuck in my mind through my psychological studies, and that particular statement was, what the East knows about the human mind is at least 2,000 years in advance of Western psychology. So I thought to myself, my God, I've been studying Western psychology, and there are people that 2,000 years, and this comes from someone that I have a great deal of respect for, Carl Jung. This probably went down as the greatest psychologist of the last century, the 20th century. So what I did in 1959, I began something in Beverly Hills, California, which I would have people come in, and instead of doing the typical parapsychological tests, I would do tests in terms of consciousness. What do I mean? I would take them into deep states and higher states of meditation using Eastern methods, many methods that Dr. Taylor is going to talk about, I'm sure. And in the experience that the people I had, the students that I would have come in researching with me, we would have forums, they would write out their experiences, they then would hand them in on a weekly basis with our groups. They would sketch out if they saw something in their third eye, their inner eye. We would take and then begin to compare all of these experiences. We would see that maybe certain experiences were reoccurring. We would try to dissect which were as a result of something they had heard or read previously, and which were spontaneous, that had to come from the deeper levels of their unconscious. We then began also, as we kept these records, and incidentally, these records went on for 30 years, keeping these records, tens of thousands of records, comparing one to the other, and then we would start to say, all right, not just to have the experience, but what is the effect on the psyche of the person? Does this have the transformative effect that yogis, mystics, wise men through the ages had claimed that this would have on the personality? Because to me, I was goal-oriented, having been brought up in this country. You know, is there a purpose to all of this? Is there something at the end of the rainbow? Is there some light at the end of the tunnel? Something that we could use in a practical way. Because here in the West, everything has to have a practical goal. Otherwise, why even spend any time with it? And so over the years, we kept records not only of the initial experiences and the ongoing experiences of each person, we then kept record of what is the effect of consciousness. On the consciousness, suddenly, was this tremendous nirvana, samadhi, all of these goals of meditation, of yoga, were these things now going to really transform the individual? Or were they going to still have their psychoneurosis as they had had previously? Was it going to have a little effect or a major effect? And as the years progressed, as the decades progressed, more and more I realized what Jung had said was indeed a reality. It was a reality that I had wished that people that had been brought up like myself here in the United States on baseball and mom's apple pie, that we had been exposed to such knowledge when we were children. However, that was not the case. And so, over a period of years, literally, I went through research with tens of thousands of students, which reinforced all the good feelings that I had initially about yoga and its teachings. And then, a few years back, when Dr. Taylor had completed his dissertation, the dissertation supervisor called me up and said, I think there is a dissertation here, I've just approved it, but I want you to take a look at it as president of the university, because this is right down your alley. It deals with consciousness. And so I read through it, and I was very, very impressed. And after that time, Dr. Taylor spoke at a couple of our conventions that we had for our international student body and graduates, and I was even more impressed. And so that's, in a nutshell, why I'm here right now. I'm here because I believe in Dr. Taylor, I believe in his work, and certainly I am very, very, very prone to his work because he is doing the same types of things that I have, perhaps in slightly different ways, but he's going around the world educating people into the deeper mysteries of life and consciousness. You've probably, I assume, read through his background, so I won't go ahead and repeat that, because I know that you're anxious to hear Dr. Taylor himself. And so I'm going to it's given me great pleasure to introduce to you Dr. Taylor. Dr. Taylor, would you come forth then? And I'm going to transfer all of these microphones and so forth, and I'm going to let you do it. You're a younger man than I.
Thank you. Okay. Thank you so much, Dr. Masters.
All right.
Just hold on to that.
All right.
Just a few words on Dr. Masters. The doctorate degree which I got awarded from the University of Sedona, of which Dr. Paul Leon Masters is the president. A few words on Dr. Masters, and that is, I've been searching for consciousness for the last 40 years, and I wanted a man who had experienced a little bit of Eastern philosophy inside him and what consciousness was, and the light of consciousness as well. And I did not find any university at all in the world with a president who had experienced such a thing. And it is indeed an honor for me to stand here with Dr. Masters to give me the doctorate from a man who has experienced Indian mysticism, yoga as well, and the theory of consciousness, from which he humbly began 50 years ago, when anybody who talked about consciousness 50 years ago was thought he was a little bit out of this world. He is a man who has met Maharishi Mahesh Yogi as well, and various other great sages and mystics, Today, consciousness is in the forefront of science. Even quantum mechanics has to point towards consciousness, because without consciousness being taken into account in quantum physics today, it doesn't make sense. So, as he mentioned Carl Jung, he also said same thing. Unless you make the unconscious conscious, you are living in the hands of fate. So we have to understand what is he saying when he says, unless you make the unconscious conscious. The unconscious turns out to be, in the last analysis, the Kundalini. Secondly, I met Roger Penrose, I met David Chalmers, I met Deepak Chopra last month at the Stockholm, Sweden, towards the science of consciousness, and they are saying the same thing. It is so difficult to make the Western people understand what consciousness is. Yet Dr. Masters has done a great deal, I must say, to just go single-handedly in this world, boldly, courageously, to bring out that concept of consciousness, and I really appreciate his courage and his humbleness in the whole thing, standing against all the obstacles he's been through and coming in contact with Dr. Masters. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
Deeply from my heart.
Thank you. Thank you.
Let the world know here's a man who stood for it.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.